Let's talk about CJ and the Houston Texans. Unfortunately, if you are a Texans fan, they just lost to the Kansas City Chiefs 23-14. A tough day in the office for CJ and crew. But at the same time, they showed a lot of fight, and I do believe that the Houston Texans, if they make the right moves this offseason, they're going to be okay long term. But let's start off with the problems that they ran into in this game and what they have ran into over the last few years, even before CJ got drafted and even before DeMeco Ryans was the head coach. The Houston Texans offensive line has not been good. Even historically, their offensive line has been a problem. We saw David Carr many decades ago be the most sacked quarterback in the league at the time. They have to fix his offensive line. CJ was the second most sacked quarterback this season next to Caleb Williams. And we saw last year in his rookie year, all of that success, won a playoff game, offensive rookie of the year. He was still one of the most pressured and one of the most sacked quarterbacks in this league. And CJ, you can say he's holding on to the football for too long. But it's also other times where CJ's delivering the football on the dime. They have to bring in better offensive linemen. You have Laramie Tunsil. That's the best lineman that you have. I look at them from the left guard to the right tackle position. You could bring in some more players. They deal with a lot of penalties on this offensive line. And Laramie Tunsil was a penalty machine in the first half of this season. But you saw him settle things down. You have to bring in more linemen across the board. Look at what the Carolina Panthers did with Bryce Young. They brought in 2 interior offensive guards to go out there and help out CJ. CJ can only do so much when he only has a second or two inside the pocket. And he has good mobility, but he doesn't have the mobility like a Josh Allen and like a Lamar Jackson. And eventually, if your quarterback continues to take hits over and over again, I don't care how big you are, I don't care how tough you are, eventually these defensive players, they're going to crack you down and you may run into a major injury. Look at Andrew Luck with the Indianapolis Colts. You have to go out there and you have to build this line up. If you really want to win big in this league, you have to win through the trenches. Nothing has changed. The rules are still the same. In order for you to go out there and to win a Super Bowl, you have to have a decent to very good offensive line. And that has been the case with almost every team in history. Look at the Kansas City Chiefs many years ago against Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Majority of their offensive line was beat up and banged up. Patrick Mahomes not have enough time in the pocket. They got blown out by the Buccaneers. You need to build depth on this line and you need to bring in some better players. And I do understand that they drafted some offensive linemen. On average, it takes 2 to 3 years for your offensive linemen to really hit their stride. If you have young players on this line, it's going to take some time to go out there for them to develop. And right now, the Houston Texans, they're in a very interesting situation. I do believe that CJ right now can win you a Super Bowl in the right situation with a better offensive line and when his wide receivers are fully healthy. This defense is ready to win a Super Bowl right now. And I'm not over-exaggerating when I'm saying this. You have a defense. Look at what they did against Justin Herbert. Look what they did against Patrick Mahomes today. Patrick Mahomes had some good moments, but they held him in check. They only scored 23 points. And once again, the kicker goes out there. He makes his extra point. He makes his field goal. He doesn't have the extra point blocked at the end of the game. We're talking about a different situation right here. And I understand coulda, shoulda, woulda doesn't win you football games. I'm just adding context into this conversation. So now look at the Houston Texans. You're not that far off. Bring in some more pieces up front to help out CJ. Maybe even switch some offensive line coaches because your offensive line wasn't particularly good when you had Deshaun Watson on the back end of his tenure with this organization. You have to build this line up and you have to go out there and protect CJ and give him a consistent run game. Now, Joe Mixon is a phenomenal running back. He's an amazing veteran to have. What do I mean by a consistent run game? Joe Mixon is bouncing from 2 to 3 defenders. He's just bouncing out to the outside majority of the time, like how he did against the Dallas Cowboys, how he did today against the Kansas City Chiefs. If you can give him some more open pathways, he could take it up the field for 20, 25 yards. That's helping out the offense. Now he can open up the playbook. Bobby Slowick right now, even though he did regress as a play caller in year number 2 with CJ, he's had some brilliant moments when you have a consistent run game. Then you can work off a play action. Then you can do some jet sweeps. You can do some motion plays. It starts up front with this line. And I like what the general manager did last year. He tried to fix the offensive line with younger players. That's not working out. They made a trade to bring in Shaq Mason a couple years ago. Shaq Mason is no longer the same player that he once was. And when I look at the front office, they brought in some key wide receiving help. You know, last year, Tank Dell went down. He hurt his leg against the Denver Broncos. He broke his leg. So he missed that playoff run. All you had was Nico Collins. The front office saw that. Let's bring in Stephon Diggs. They brought in Stephon Diggs. You had a big 3 at the wide receiving position. Now, this is on Bobby Slowick. Tank Dell was a non-factor in the first half of the season. As soon as Stephon Diggs goes down, then you see Tank Dell back into the matchup. And the same with Dalton Schultz at the tight end spot. You could bring back Stephon Diggs on a 1-year prove-it deal, or you can let him walk. What works into the Houston Texans' favor, you have CJ on a rookie deal. Don't let this get away from you. If you're the Houston Texans, take advantage of this. Load this roster up with talent. You've done that on the defensive side of the ball, and I understand that you're going to do that because DeMeco Ryans is a defensive head coach, but put some money back into the offense. You went out there and made a trade to bring in Joe Mixon. That's also a great move by the general manager. I don't think anyone should be fired. I don't think that anyone should be let go because of this playoff loss. And if someone says that, I don't agree with that. Because they brought in the right pieces at the wide receiving position. Unfortunately, it didn't pan out. But you can bring in some more wide receiving help because CJ's on that rookie deal. Load this roster up front of that offensive line. Work off that run game with Joe Mixon. Deliver the football to Nico Collins. Nico Collins is one of the best receivers in this league. I will be cautious on bringing back Stephon Diggs, who is older, coming off a torn ACL. But he was very good in the red zone. And when I look at Tank Dell, you have to prepare for life without Tank Dell for a little bit. He may miss all of next season. He may be able to return in the postseason. This is a man that suffered that leg injury against the Broncos a year before. Not only just that, he got injured a couple weeks ago against the Kansas City Chiefs on the same field as they played on in tonight's matchup. He basically blew up everything in his knee. Is he going to be the same wide receiver? We're not talking about a man that's 6'3", 220 pounds. We're talking about a wide receiver that you could put inside the slot. He is known for his speed. Is he going to have the same speed coming off the knee injury? Nothing's guaranteed here. So bring in some more wide receiving help. And I trust that the Houston Texans will do this. And in the first round, draft the best offensive lineman available and go out there and play plug and play up front. And then you have a camp battle to see who the best offensive linemen are. And you're going to get a true test if your offensive line is good or not in training camp because you have one of the best defensive lines with Will Anderson and with Danielle Hunter. If they can hold those guys off in training camp and practice, you know you have something. If they can't, it's not going to tell you right now that there's just 100% garbage on the field because those guys are so great. But if they can just contest with those guys in practice, that's going to give you a clear-cut answer. And you can bring up the conversation where they know their tendencies, they're practicing with the players. You just want to see consistent good play on the offensive line. But I look at Bobby Slowick, bring him back next year. At the middle point in this season, I was really questioning Bobby Slowick. But I went back and I realized his offensive line is terrible. It's only so much that he can do. CJ did take a dip this year, but this is back-to-back years right now with a young football team on the offensive end that's made the playoffs, and they've won playoff games. They beat the Cleveland Browns last year. They dominated the Los Angeles Chargers this year. They forced Justin Herbert to throw those 4 interceptions. They forced Tua Tagovailoa into a bad situation. They forced Josh Allen, a league MVP candidate this year, into playing one of his worst games this season, one of the worst games of his career. So the defense, they're there. And speaking of this defense, let's really get into it. I said a couple months ago, Azeez Al-Shaair, you can say that he's a dirty player because of past incidents. That play against the Jacksonville Jaguars and against Trevor Lawrence, you can say it was a dirty play. I said that Trevor Lawrence did slide a bit late, but Azeez Al-Shaair's hit on him was a bit excessive. Why am I bringing up something that happened many months ago? Patrick Mahomes had 2 penalties in this game that really hurt the Houston Texans. The first play, Will Anderson, he barely touches him, barely gets contact on Patrick Mahomes. They throw a flag. Patrick Mahomes is running behind offensive linemen like he's a screen guy. Usually when you throw a slot screen, you have the offensive lineman right in front of them and they have their hands on their back and they're just dancing around. That's what Patrick Mahomes did. And he just dropped down. He curled up into a ball. The defensive players, they hit each other. They threw a flag. These are not dirty plays by the Houston Texans. I can meet you halfway on the play with Trevor Lawrence. I can say that's a bad play. I can agree with you there. I'll go all the way with you on there. And today's matchup, nah, man, I can't do it. It has to be a penalty for quarterbacks sliding late. It has to be a penalty for quarterbacks just basically taunting defensive players like, hey, you can't hit me because I'm going to drop down at any given moment. You're handcuffing defensive players. And I know why the league does it because the quarterbacks, they're the star players. But it's not any rules to help out defensive players. If you've ever played football at any level, it is hard for you to stop and brace yourself off of momentum and say, hey, I'm not going to hurt this player. I saw a couple of years ago in the Miami Dolphins game against Derek Carr with the Raiders. He's trying his best not to put his body weight on Derek Carr. He tears his ACL. The league has to go back. They have to review that. And I'm not saying that because it's Patrick Mahomes. I've seen it with different quarterbacks in this league, with Lamar Jackson, with Josh Allen. If the quarterback's not held to that standard, that is ridiculous. You're hurting your defensive players, and you're hurting the defense as a whole in this league. And I'm not trying to make that as an excuse to why the Houston Texans lost this game. But moments like that, it just makes me shake my head. Personally, that's just me. You may disagree with that, and I'll respect your opinion. But at the same time, if you've ever played defense, man, it is hard for you to go out there and just to say, you know what, I'm going to stop running altogether. While I'm sliding, I'm about to hit him, I'm going to pull up. You're going to hurt yourself by doing that. But when I look at the defense today with Patrick Mahomes and how they defended him, they did a lot of good things. He only had 177 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown. This is a quarterback in the past that usually passes for 250 passing yards and at least 2 passing touchdowns on the day. You have Danielle Hunter, you have Will Anderson, one of the best pass rushing duos in the league this year. They are a phenomenal group. And you have Azeez Al-Shaair at the linebacker position with Henry, and you have Christian Harris. Their defense is complete all the way through, also through their secondary. And this is when I say a lot of good things about this front office. They try to go out there, they try to fix their offensive problems. This defense had defensive problems last year. They didn't have a true number 2 cornerback. Remember, Derek Stingley Jr. went down last year dealing with a hamstring injury. And their secondary, they're giving up a lot of big plays. Derek Stingley Jr. is a true number 1. Kamari Lassiter, you can make the case that he's also a true number 1. And this is a man that's a rookie. He's going to only get better. Speak to the players going out there and getting better on their own, yes, but DeMeco Ryans has really built this defense up in the last few years, similar to what he did with the San Francisco 49ers when he was their main defensive play caller. This is a complete defense, and they're amazing. I look at Kalen Bullock at the safety position. He had 5 interceptions on the season. He could have easily had 7 if he did not drop one against the Dallas Cowboys. And he also had another drop early in the season. His defensive back is going to happen. But he's a phenomenal player at the safety position. Jalen Petrie missed majority of the season on the back end of this year. He was having a very good year this year underneath DeMeco Ryans. He's just a do-it-all player in the secondary. Play inside the nickel, can play at the safety position, and he's on IR right now. So now look at this defense. They're ready to win a Super Bowl right now. Those guys can go out there. They can defend against the run. They can get physical up front. They can get to your quarterback. They can press up at the line of scrimmage. Look at what Kamari did last week against Justin Herbert. What he did against Quentin Johnston. That's technically sound. You can't teach that with every single player. Those are just ball instincts that he has, and the same with Derek Stingley Jr. So now look at the defense. They're going to be okay for many years to come. And usually defenses either upgrade the next season or they just tell off a little bit. When I look at DeMeco Ryans, he's such a great defensive mind. I expect for this defense to continue to get better every single year underneath him. But this offense, I'm worried about them in the trenches. I'm not worried about the quarterback. I have questions about the offensive coordinator, but this was a man last year that was taking head coaching interviews. This is a man that is highly regarded in NFL circles. I trust that Bobby Sloyd will be better next year, but we'll see. And when I look at the wide receiving position, there's a lot of questions there. John Mechie right now, he's not consistent enough. It'll be great to see John Mechie go out there and be a true number 2 wide receiver. He's not ready for this spot just yet. And Xavier Hutchinson, he will give you big plays. He's not a true number 2 either. You have Nico Collins. Tank Dell is going to miss majority of next year, if not all of next season. And Stephon Diggs, you could possibly bring him back or let another team go out there and offer him a big money deal. But the wide receiving class and free agency is going to be strong. But go out there, take advantage of this rookie window with CJ, and you should be okay long term. There is no reason right now to why the Houston Texans cannot get to an AFC Championship appearance while they are on this rookie deal with CJ. And it comes down from the front office, who has done a lot of good things in the past 3 to 4 years with this organization. I like the Houston Texans. Unfortunately, it was not good enough today to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, but you put your head up and you truck forward. And I will also speak on this. The kicker had a strong regular season. I don't know what the hell happened in this Chiefs game. He missed the field goal. He missed the extra point, had a field goal attempt that was blocked. He has to be better moving forward. Now, I'm not going to come on here and say, get rid of him, add in a new kicker. Kickers in today's league, they're either really good or they're really bad. There's no in between. And unfortunately for him, he's very inconsistent towards the end of the year, but you bring him back. This game was not a good game for him, but you know what? Players have bad games. That would be a very hot take for me to come on here and say, get rid of Fairbairn, let someone else go out there and bring him in. I think that he did enough good things this year to really save his job, and he's been consistent in the past. Sure, he did have a tough game against the New York Jets, but it's going to happen. But they really need those points in today's matchup against the Chiefs. What did them in today's matchup was the fact that the offensive line play wasn't good enough. They did not have enough juice at the wide receiving position. Dalton Schultz is not a good blitz blocker, to be perfectly honest with you guys. And they send in that pressure, and they're sending in 6 or 7 guys. Dalton Schultz, at that point, he just gives up. He's just a body out there. But Dalton Schultz did not have a good year this year like how he had last year, but you're going to bring him back. You gave him a contract extension. Little plays like that hurt them in this matchup. And also the fact that you just couldn't protect CJ enough. And they didn't run the football enough with Joe Mixon. They had a great drive coming out of halftime. And when they missed that extra point, that really hurt the Houston Texans. They had chances to win this football game, but the penalties hurt them, pushed the Kansas City Chiefs back into scoring range, pushed them back to first down situations, and you had a lot of penalties on the offensive end. When you'll get a big play, now it's 1st and 15, holding on the offense. You dumb down on those plays. And not every time that a player gets a penalty, it's always on the coach. Because I hear so many people say, well, he's coaching it in practice. It's not always the case. When the rest of your offensive linemen aren't holding and it's just the same guy over and over again, that's not really on the coach. That's just on the player not going out there and having that technique. And when the player's offsides, it's going to happen. It's football. But if the same player is dealing with the same problems and no one else is, the player needs to be more disciplined. And sometimes you just have to hold the players accountable. But I do believe that the Houston Texans, they came out with a lot of fight. Just towards the end of the game, it just wasn't enough. But let me know in the comment section below, how do you guys feel about the Houston Texans? And the future is still bright in my opinion. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, we want each and every last one of you guys stay safe, stay positive. Thanks for the video, guys. God bless. Peace.